Jarek Defiler here. You guys like them there bullet hell roguelites like Vampire Survivors, Brotato, Halls of Torment, and such? Well, you may want to check out Curse of Pirates. Arrrg! A nifty little addition to the genre where you play a pirate that goes around shooting baddies while leveling up your ship each run and unlocking various goodies in the meta progression. Upon first glance, you might think this looks like your standard everyday bullet hell roguelike, but Curse of Pirates mixes things up a bit with its skill and mark system. It doesn't just give you items you build upon, but also these perks that you create a build with, much like the boons in Hades. Fun stuff! So why not check out my first impression and see if this simple yet fun little bullet hell roguelike, Curse of Pirates, is something you'll enjoy. Breakdown. Hello ladsy lasses, Jarek Defiler the Not So Patient Gamer here to do a little first impression for yous guys of one Curse of Pirates. Arrrg! This is one of those games I saw on Reddit or an X ad that grabbed my attention. I actually find lots of great games on those ads, which goes to show that not all ads are useless, annoying crap. Anywho, I got access to the playtest recently, and given the bullet hell roguelike genre is something I'm a fan of, I jumped right in. Upon first glance, I wasn't expecting much here. The developer, Funky Parrot, apt, doesn't appear to have anything else under their belt, so my patient gaming radar was a-tingling. However, after putting several hours into the playtest, I got pretty hooked and thought I'd do a quick first impression. Whippy! For starters, what does Curse of Pirates bring to the table that other bullet hell roguelites don't? Arrrg! What sets it apart? Well, it integrates other mechanics other than just item stacking, which is what I found most interesting. You got your standard fare, auto-attacking, a pirate ability to shoot multiple cannon shots at once, and a dash for your ship, which is super useful. But much like Hades, you're also granted these skills upon leveling up. You'll get 3 options among the 3 patrons, I guess you could call them. Each patron has a theme and elemental damage type that can synergize fairly well with the others. You have Zarkul the Mad, a tentacle-infested fish lady whose theme is curses and curse damage. There's also Darkbone, an undead pirate chained to a mountain or something that specializes in poison and summons. And lastly, Misfortune, or Astrid Flameheart, a human pirate who grants you fire perks, yeah. Not a whole bunch of options at the start, you'd think, but as you figure things out and learn the mechanics, you find that there's actually a fair amount of fun and depth to be had here. Arrrg! This is mainly due to the boons you get in the form of marks. These are basically little modifiers that you can attach to each skill as you progress on any given run. Each skill has a limit on the different mark types you can have, however, you can have multiple marks of a given type in each slot. What do I mean by this? Say you have Firestorm here. This grants the ability for your attacks to unleash fiery projectiles. Then you have the Spectral Mark here that grants ghost damage. You pop that mark onto your Firestorm, and when it procs, it then does that additional ghost damage. At least that's how I believe it works. Arrrg. Now at that point you can only have one other mark in this ability, whereas other abilities may grant more or less slots, but you can place more spectral marks in that skill as they will stack. So the more marks, the more damage, the more you level the skill, the more damage and proc chance you have as well. It's a nifty and interesting way to allow you to progress in damage while adding some cool build options. So that Firestorm we mentioned earlier can have that ghost damage one run, but the next you can mix things up and do a poison curse build on it with different marks or something like that. Or you could just add all fire marks to make it burn everything even more. Then there's other skills that can synergize with those. You can get some skills that will increase the burning chance of your abilities and marks, or allow for summons that are procced by some modifiers from skills and other marks. It's actually quite in-depth once you get into it, and this is just with the limited capacity of the playtest. I'm sure the full release will have other things you can do. I hope. Arrrg. Now, as you sail around the map fighting bad guys, you will gain coins from fallen enemies, which will basically be your XP, but then you also have these wood and stone nodes scattered throughout that you collect and then use to open caches that grant you even more upgrades like movement and attack speed, or more marks. It's kind of cool how you have to collect these as well, as you can't simply sail over them and get it all in one shot. You have to stick around for a bit to collect them over time, which leaves you vulnerable and adds a little layer of complexity there, especially when fighting giant hordes of baddies. There are also altars that can heal you or grant you temporary buffs to combat, defense, and movement. You also have some sexy mermaids who you can pay gold to purchase more skills. With each purchase, the price goes up though, so buyer beware. That said, when you level up and get new skill options, you can choose to banish some or re-roll for better options. No biggie, arrrg. You also get a few temporary item drops as well, like a magnet that pulls in all the gold on the map, or a ship wheel that grants you speed, or this paper that grants you a charge of your pirate ability. So you progress through the map, wiping out all the little stinkers and filling up this boss bar thingy. Once it's full, you fight the boss, bada bing, bada boom, you move on to the next map, arrrg. In the playtest, we were limited to 2 bosses and what appears to be the same map, so not sure how that works out in the full release. Altogether, it would take me roughly 25 minutes to beat both bosses, so not bad. On top of all this, there is the meta progression. You can monitor quests, which are basically achievements that then unlock more marks that you can purchase with gold. It's not bad at all. In fact, that's one thing I really liked about Curse of Pirates, that of its pacing. It doesn't really feel grindy or slow. The rewards are abundant and quickly received. That said, I worry that if the pacing continues with the full release, you might unlock everything perhaps too soon. But if there are a plethora of things to unlock in the full release, that would take quite some time as the cost for the meta shop does increase with newer unlocks. If that's the case, then I feel the pacing is perfect. It's not too slow, not too fast, just right. Arrrg. There is a story here and it's presented very piecemeal rather than rammed down your throat. From what I've seen so far, it seems interesting but isn't a necessity to enjoy the game. You can likely skip all the story bits if you want. So that's the gist of it. Really simple but really fun gameplay loop. Given the diversity of possible builds in just the playtest, I suspect the full release will have much more interesting things that will just make it more complex. So looking forward to it. The art style is also lots of fun and the music is great. You gotta love pirates as a theme, no issues there. But that said, there are issues indeed overall. So let's move on to my criticisms real quick, shall we? For starters, the menus are very buggy. I mostly used a controller as I felt the actual combat was best that way. When traversing around the map and fighting enemies, it worked perfectly. But when attempting to navigate the menus, it will fight you. You'll have to make multiple attempts to select the items and categories you want as it soft locks you into certain areas. Arrrg. For instance, I didn't even know you got rewards from the achievements that then unlock other possible marks to purchase in the shop until I started writing this script because I couldn't access those functions using a controller. It doesn't allow me to scroll up or down or move to the different menus in the shop, so I had no idea that you could actually unlock things from the achievements because I could never get over there. It wasn't until I was testing out the mouse and keyboard that I discovered there's a whole other menu. Oof. Early on, some of the difficulty can ramp up real quick until you get your bearings. This isn't particularly new to roguelites, and given the pacing and the fairly simple learning curve, it's not a huge problem here, but expect to be insta-gibbed at times early on until you figure things out. That said, one big part of that is that there are these grapple ships that latch onto you, slowing you down and eventually outright stopping you from moving. These are a huge pain in the ass if you don't have adequate damage to deal with them early on or saved your dash for them. But again, once you start learning the game and unlocking things, you figure out how to deal with them no problem. It's just they do feel a bit oppressive in the early stages of learning the game. They just weren't fun to play against until you figure them out. That most likely is a me problem rather than the game's problem, but there you go. Arrrg. There's another bug that tends to happen where item drops may end up on land, leaving you unable to pick them up. This was rare for the most part, but it did happen 3 to 4 times during my playthrough, so I have to mention it here. Now, in the hub area, your dash still has a cooldown. This is something I left in the feedback for the developers, as I think they should remove the cooldown or just grant you high movement speed while in the hub, because sailing around can be a bit of a slog there, and I don't think that's necessary. It would be a nice quality of life tweak. There are also times when the game feels like you're almost forced to do high burst damage builds early on. This is due to things like the grapple ships or these events where the enemy will swarm you in a giant circle with no way out. These will often be combined with the grapple ships, leaving you swiftly dead. So instead of doing a poison or fire AoE dot build, it's more beneficial to just have high burst so you can make an opening and escape. But again, that's one of those things that you can overcome once you unlock more stuff and learn the mechanics. Other than that, the game is very fun. It ran fine with no performance issues, the gameplay loop was satisfying and had me wanting to come back for more. I really enjoyed the combat and how they mixed it up with the island maps and altars as well as the skill system. Really good mix. Arrrg. At the end of the day, I was just thoroughly entertained, and that's all I look for in my gaming experiences. Fun. And there was plenty of fun to be had here. Now keep in mind that this was just my first impression of a playtest, so who knows how the full release will end up. But I'm hopeful, so it just might be worth putting on your guys' wish list if you're a fan of bullet hell roguelites like yours truly. Anyways, this has been Jarek Defiler, arrgging some arrrg. You all have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night, depending on where you are. And go arrrg. Yeah, it gets old, but whatever.